Well, Happy New Year and welcome to Kids Corner on the State Champs Podcast Network. I'm Jonathan Kidd along with Sean Baligian. Sean, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, Johnny. Great to be back. And, the cool thing about high school hockey is it's right back to the grind. There's some great games in this next week. Can't wait for it.
And, Sean, who do we have with us today?
An old friend of mine. He's done a tremendous job not only coaching Livonia Stevenson, but certainly as an ambassador of the great game of hockey at the high school level. Let's welcome in Dave Mitchell. Hi, Dave.
Hi, guys. Thank you very much for having me. Happy New Year to you both. Very happy to be here, and thank you for those kind words. And it's great to be here representing high school hockey, which, as you guys both know, is definitely growing and really healthy right now.
So this is your 9th year as head coach at Livonia Stevenson?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I spent a year before that. Very few people know I was with Livonia Churchill for a year under Pete Mazzoni, and then went over to Livonia Stevenson.
And I still remember the first time I met you was that Churchill-Stevenson game in 2008.
Yes, January 31st. I totally remember that, 4-1. It was absolutely. Maz and I, it was a great game. We were 1-2 in the state at that time.
And I remember I came up to you and I was like, hey, can I get the cameras in the locker room? You're like, I don't know. You were very nervous going into that game. Was it because you're playing Churchill the first time?
Sure. Sure. I mean, they had run such a great program. Pete Mazzoni, you talk about an ambassador for this game and what he did for high school hockey. But, sure, my first year and at that time, that year, if you guys remember that year, I think we had tied one game up to that point. Never expected that year to be what it was, but we had a really good run. So, yeah, times have changed now, and now I'm like, yeah, come on in and whatever you need.
Yep.
But you guys have been great, so we really appreciate all the support over the years.
Last spring, before the hockey playoffs started, me and Sean talked about how great it would be if the MIHL and the KLA have a little challenge. And it finally happened, so explain what happened, in December.
That's correct. It was December 16th, and it was done, you guys and Sean, a text that we had going back and forth saying, who would win and who would do this and how the leagues would match up. And it just, we really just need more showcases, we felt, around the state, and they're starting to happen now. And we had the opportunity to do something like a Big Ten ACC challenge. And so, with the two of the better leagues of high school hockey, a lot of the games happened already. We already played Orchard Lake, and CC already played Brighton, and Salem already played Trenton. So we just decided to put them under one roof. And so we threw some dates out there. December 16th decided to be it, and Eddie Edgar was overly welcoming to doing this, and they were great and a great host for that. And so we had games literally start at 9 a.m. and go all day, and it was a great day of high school hockey.
John, it's interesting. The best ideas perhaps come from text, because really and truly it was something that I was talking to Dave about and Craig Steskowski, and we just said, how cool would that be? And it's exactly as you said, David. I thought of the Big Ten ACC Challenge because I think that's been such a great idea. And, the biggest thing is you have to get the coaches on board. And when you get the thumbs up from Andy Weidenbach, that's really half the battle. But he's too modest to say it. You have to make it happen. An idea is one thing. Making it happen is another thing. And the work that I know Dave put in and all the other coaches. And it's interesting. When you get guys rowing in the same direction, it's amazing what can happen. And that's what that tournament did. And the coolest thing about it for me is I was busy that day doing another job. But I showed up late and talking to Dave and talking to some of the coaches after the fact that were involved in that. It was an enthusiastic thumbs up from everybody. And that's something, you really want to make it be a staple on the calendar. That, okay, you know what? The second week of December, everybody knows where we're going to be. It might be at Eddie Edgar. It might be at Wallace. It might be at USA. You don't know where, but we're going to do this each and every year. So hopefully, David, it builds to that.
Exactly, and I think we're looking to do that. I mean, there's been talk now just to try to maybe even keep it at Edgar and keep it the same place and even have, because the MIHL Showcase still is kind of our Super Bowl and still something, and they were overly, welcoming to us adding this, and we used a lot of their things as we looked at them as a model of how to do this, and so this is just a one-day event where that's a 3-day event, and that's kind of the big one of the year. But this this allows, being earlier before the holidays, allows the scouts to come out to identify players, to see players. So there's a lot of talk now that maybe our league will just kind of take it over and we'll host it and get the teams from our league involved with the volunteers. Because like you said, it was a lot of work. I got to even give a little shout out to my father who, Adam Mitchell, who did a ton of work for that day. And our parents at Livonia Stevenson were outstanding and stepped up. And so it was a great day of high school hockey. We had 20 plus scouts come in, and they were there all day, and they were very complimentary. We had a nice hospitality room for the scouts and the press and the refs, and so it was a good day. And I'd say unfortunately for us in terms of the KLAA, the MIHL was successful. They won 6 of the 10 games, so they got a big trophy donated by Livonia Trophy there, and so right now they are the league to beat. And so, but yes, it's definitely something we're looking at. To keep on the calendar, keep at that time, and do it and make it an annual event.
You had the fun of being the host and coaching that game. So how stressful of the day was it for you?
It was a long day. It was a long day of hockey, and it was a long day. And like Sean said, though, just to get it off the ground was the big thing, and to get the coaches to buy in and get us, as he mentioned, when we work together, we can do some great things, and everybody was on board. We all worked together, and so. Yeah, there was a time that I was like, I got a game to coach as well, and so I was running all over the place. But, I have a great staff at Livonia Stevenson, and we had, we surround ourselves with some pretty good people, and so, they made sure things were ready to go, and it was a long day, but definitely well worth it.
Now, Sean, we talked last month how it was good to see a person like Jordan Venegoni staying at Livonia Churchill, not skipping to juniors. Well. That has changed now.
Yeah, it has. Just shortly before actually the new year, he decided to go play elsewhere. You wish him the best. I've always been the type, John, in covering sports so many years. Who am I to tell a professional athlete, an amateur athlete, whatever the case may be, what's best for them? So you wish them the best, and I'm sure that Jason Reynolds and the Churchill family do the same. But, here's the thing. There's been so much talent that not only has stayed at the high school level, but has thrived at the high school level. And I think, to me, one of the coolest things in the past 10 years, John, we're seeing things at this level that we didn't see before. We're seeing guys go on. We're seeing them go on to the junior. We're seeing them go on and sign commits to go play at university. You're even seeing guys go beyond. I mean, we were talking before the show started. I think everybody will remember that Romeo team that won the state championship a couple years ago in Division II. And, there were a couple of quality players in Logan Genuine and Nick Blankenberg. And Nick just signed a commit with Michigan. That's awesome. And to me, that's what I want to put front and center and tell the kids out there that are maybe deviating or have somebody in their ear to say, well, it's a dead end with high school. No. That's thinking from 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. That's not the case anymore. Guys are moving on. His players are moving on. Dave, you had a couple guys move on. 2 of the guys that were part of your state championship team, and one of them's in town, as a matter of fact, tonight. Dom Lutz is in town with Ferris State. So, to me, those are examples that you need to throw out there and say, no. That thinking is archaic. That's thinking from years gone by. There is a future, and guys are watching. I mean, just the scouts alone at the MIHL KLAA Challenge, John. I mean, if that isn't evidence enough, I don't know what is.
Well, and exactly. And I can't say... And it's why I'm here, too, to educate people a little bit. Hockey is the one sport that these kids don't go right to college. I mean, they have to go to juniors first, and they will go to junior. And so those junior scouts were there. At that day, we had 5 or 6 players that have already been tendered, which has already signed a letter of commit with North American League hockey teams. A couple are on our team at Livonia Stevenson. There's Brendan West, a high-end talent from CC, has already been tendered as well. And you have one from Brighton. And Brighton has 2 college commits right now with Sam Brennan and Adam Conquest, Air Force and Bowling Green, respectively. And so you have guys there that are already looking at their path, and it's a process. It really is a process. And so these scouts were there. There were at least 6, 7, 8 NA teams there on that day to look for talent, and the secret's kind of getting out. We use a hashtag, that hashtag there's more here, meaning there's more players here that can play at the next level. We're finding other avenues, whether it be the North American League or the USHL, obviously is the one of the best leagues in all of hockey. But then there's leagues in Canada, the USPHL. Guys are doing different things. We have a couple of our guys that are playing in Richmond, Virginia right now that, will look to further their career, whether it's D1 or D3. So a number of players are doing some great things. And so the avenues that has been built now, as you mentioned, Sean, those resources are there and like 10, 15 years ago.
It's interesting. You might remember we did a story, John, you and I, probably 4 years ago, and one of the guys that I quoted was Mike Vellucci, who at the time was the president and general manager of the Whalers. Well, he's coaching Charlotte in the AHL, and he's the assistant general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes. So needless to say, you can't get much higher than that in the hockey world. And his quote back then rings true today. If you can play, they're going to find you. Yep. And the scouts, this isn't a secret anymore. I agree with you, Dave. This isn't a secret anymore. I can tell you, in whether it be going to do a game up in East Lansing or doing USA Hockey or doing OHL games, a lot of times a scout will kind of, do the psst, psst, come here. Hey, can you tell me about this Bonet kid at Stevenson? What have you seen out of this kid? Can you tell me about this Conquest kid? So people know now, and the word is out there, to be sure.
Well, and there was even a couple NHL guys stop by.
Absolutely.
And stop by just to make sure they're not missing anything.
And why is it the pressure for these junior hockey teams to get these kids for their senior year of high school?
You mean like before their senior year or after their senior?
After their junior year, the pressure for them to jump on.
Well, I think a lot depends again it depends on the individual, it depends on the program, it depends on where they're going. The USHL will look to take the 16, 17-year-olds, and they will look to take the kids after U16 maybe for their senior in high school. The North American League, it's an older league. I mean, there are guys in 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and so it's not really built. The pressure isn't there as much for the North American League. But you got to remember, those leagues are businesses. They all have owners. They all have to answer. They all have financial statements. They all have to, it's about winning and losing. So they're going to take the best player, regardless of age, regardless of where they're from, regardless of what. They're going to take the best possible player to give themselves the best opportunity to be successful, so they can look at their owner, they can look at their fan base, they can look at their community and say, we put on it. We have a good product here.
And with Dom Lutz, Tyler Irvine, they had those chances to leave.
Absolutely.
And they stayed. What was their reasons why they wanted to stay? It was just that high school experience?
I think it's everything. And that's, and I'll mention not only is it about the high school experience, but the quality of coaching has really come up lately. And you have a Brandon Kalnicki who played at the college level and played semi-pro hockey, back to coach high school hockey. David Moss is his assistant now and, played at the NHL. And so the quality of coaching at the high school level, and look, this may not even be very but look at the World Junior team. I don't know if you guys saw it. 10 Minnesota high school kids. Michigan had 3 or 4. It's changing a little bit. I think what the high school experience or what high school has to offer. High school has a 25-game season. I know we all wish we play more, but there are fall opportunities with a couple high-level fall programs for these kids to get involved in, and then you put them in. To play a Churchill-Stevenson game or to play a CC Brighton game in front of 1,000 people, that doesn't happen. And so I think that helps prepare them for these junior pro opportunities. And you look at Minnesota, they play in front of 1,500 to 2,000 people, so they're prepared to play under pressure. And so we're starting to see more of an opportunity with that with high school hockey.
Yeah, and the best example was a few years ago when the Whalers were still playing at now USA Hockey Arena. A couple of the players were upstairs for the CC Brighton game, and they said, we've never seen a crowd like this ever at CompuWare.
Right, exactly.
And they wish they had that opportunity to play in an environment like that.
No doubt about it. And I will tell you, and Sean keeps going back 10, 15 years ago, people would say, well, I want to play in front of the crowds with my – well, now you're getting really good hockey in front of those crowds. And I know you mentioned about a guy and you mentioned some guys. There are a number of players playing high school right now that A, either left elsewhere to come play high school, or B, had opportunities to go elsewhere and decided to come back and play at their high school level. And again, it's because of the good quality coaching, the schedules that are being played. You're seeing more and more teams travel, teams coming down from up north. More and more teams are going up north. The showcases all over, east, west, north, south. the D3 Challenge. Like, there's a lot of good things happening right now in high school hockey.
We've always had a joke, and John, you're more than welcome to join us on our fantasy road trip. But Dave, you brought this up to me maybe 5-6 years ago. I don't remember. I'd love to go up north to like a Houghton Hancock game. Like, how fun would that be? Because they're two perennial powers. It's always packed there. And it's funny, I had a chance to be up there the weekend where it was Houghton Hancock in football, and it was like the city shut down. You could see the trees blowing across the road of the tumbleweeds and all that because the city shut down. But that's the cool thing to me, John. The Usual Suspects has grown into a giant group. Where before, you talked about Trenton and Rice and CC. And now, the Usual Suspects now is a massive group, and it grows every year. I always go back, Rick Gadwa. Look what he's been able to do at Heartland. Heartland, year in, year out, is one of the top teams in the state. I know it hasn't panned out for a championship yet, but it's been this close.
Or even the Howell teams from the late 2000s.
Exactly. So, to me, that's the coolest thing is when you see these teams year in, year out, and eventually there's going to be a payoff. That's the coolest thing. And then you get the teams that pop up, and they might have a couple of years and then come back, but it's a really cool dynamic in high school hockey right now.
Well, Sean came out with his new top 25 rankings that you can see on statechampsnetwork.com. I'm going to reveal the top 10. Number 1 is Detroit Catholic Central. Number 2 is Granville. Number 3 is Dave's Livonia Stevenson. 4 is Flint Powers. 5, Orchard Lake St. Mary's. 6, Heartland. 7, Ike. 8, Hancock. 9, Brighton. 10, Saline. Sean, some people are going to say Granville. Why number 2? Sean, explain.
They're 10-0. I think they're another. Coach Brazil's done a fantastic job out there. They have become a mainstay in Division I. And what I would say to people is dig a little deeper and see who they've played. I think Coach Brazil has gotten to the point, like Dave, and like a lot of other coaches out there, where do you want me to go? Do you want me to come play at Northville? Okay, I'll come play at Northville. Do you want me to play at USA Hockey Arena? Do you want me to come to Eddie Edgar? Granville was at Eddie Edgar last year, as you recall, Dave,
yep, on
a Friday night, and then they played a Saturday game as well. And I think when you play that kind of a schedule and you build a 10-0 record, I wish I could be on the west side at Georgetown Arena this week because you have number 1 against number 2 in Granville at Georgetown Arena this next weekend, and I think that's awesome. So I'll go to bat for Coach Brazil. I think the schedule speaks for itself.
I'll echo that. What Coach Brazil has done out there, and to be 10-0 with the schedule he plays, and as Sean just said, we'll find out a lot, going into the CC game because CC's a powerhouse right now, and I'll jump on Sean because I know he takes grief about these rankings. I think we're too high. I'll always say that. But you look at these top 10 teams. I mean, they are, and again, to echo what we've been discussing. I mean, there are teams that could beat each other. Anywhere in that top 10, and the next 10 is really good. I mean, you have some high quality teams in the next 10 that I would argue have every right to be in the top 10, and so. With the top end programs in high school hockey and what teams are starting to do and the good quality coaching, it's just getting better and better.
And Sean was mentioning about Granville and the tough schedule. You play a tough schedule. How does it benefit you guys down the road for the playoffs?
Well, my Tom Izzo, I look at what he tries to do. I mean, it just benefits you guys when you get 25 games to play. You want to play the best competition anytime, anywhere. It just raises your level of detail and your level of attention that your players have to give to a game like that when you play a CC or a Heartland, or now we have Plymouth coming up. They're so good and they're so well coached that if you don't show up and you don't bring your best, it's going to be a long night. So that carries over into practice where we can say, look, we need to have a really sharp practice because of what we have coming up. So it's playing a tough schedule, I think, is a benefit to help prepare you for later on and ultimately in the development of your players and your program.
There are a couple teams in there, too. I mean, to me, Coach Hall's done such a fantastic job for so many years at Utica Eisenhower, and sometimes the work that he's done has been overlooked. Look at Coach Fassbender. This is a guy, I think coaches know about him, both in his previous job and the job he's done so far in Saline. I think people forget Saline had a wonderful run last year and knocked off a pretty talented Churchill team. So I think the Hornets are one of those teams in Division II. I like liken it to, almost like a butcher shop.
Yep.
You walk into the butcher shop, you can be butchered by any number of 7 or 8 teams in Division II. You better bring your big boy
Last man
pants.
standing.
Yeah, really, you better bring your big boy pants because there are a slew of teams. Trenton, I think this is Trenton's best team in a few years. I think Chad's done a tremendous job there. Brother Rice is the defending champion, and they've kind of picked it up as of late. So Division II is a battle, and Dave's too modest. But I think when you look at what Stevenson has done this year, especially, I think your losses tell you a lot. Sometimes people just look at the record, and I say dig a little deeper. When you have a 1-goal loss to Brighton, correct me if I'm wrong, it was a 1-goal loss as well to Orchard Lake.
Yeah, Brighton was triple overtime.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking.
Lake, yeah.
So let's look at those losses. You have Orchard Lake, who's a top 10 team. You have Brighton, who's a top 10 team, plus some of the kills that you have. I think that speaks volumes for a team and where they're at right now.
And speaking of Orchard Lake St. Mary's, you saying they're on the rise.
They've been on fire. Dave saw them up close and personal. Talent isn't a problem with that team. They're playing their best hockey as of late. They're red hot. I think right off the top of my head, Johnny, they've won 5 straight. And again, here's another team. When you're playing in the MIHL and you're playing everybody,
yep.
You're playing the best the KLA has to offer. That's that battle-tested thing. So when a playoff starts, you're a dangerous team. Look at De La Salle last year.
Yep.
Don't pay attention to De La Salle's record.
Yep.
Pay attention to who they played to. And I remember at the time their tuner, if you will, before the Division III playoff started was against Dave and Livonia Stevenson.
Yep.
What better way to get ready for the playoffs? And obviously it panned off for the Pilots last year.
And going back to Orchard Lake St. Mary's, the thing that I respect about the program Coach Clanow is they could be in Division III. They can just always stay in Division III, but they've stayed in Division I for over 10 years now, and they have never moved down.
Right. They have such a powerhouse there, and they've done such a good job. And I think they have 16 or 17 seniors this year, and so, they're peaking at the right time. They're getting better as the season goes on. But like you said, you mentioned it. They opt up. They play in the MIHL, and so just another one of countless teams. And I'll go back to you mentioned Coach Clanow, but you mentioned all these guys. It's the coaching right now. Yeah. Players are coming in, staying and coming to high school hockey because the best kept secret is the coaching and the best and the possibilities for development. I mean, we skate every day. You mentioned the tough schedule. So when we have the tough schedules, we have to our practices have to be efficient. They have to be run well. They have to, we have to accomplish a great deal in practice. And these coaches, they're doing a real good job at practice, at what they're doing with their development. When you have a Celine stay there every year, you have a Heartland, and you have the usual suspects. So it's great to see for high school hockey.
And Sean, you have Flint Powers, number 4.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to be asking that question once the playoff starts. Is this going to be finally the year Travis Perry's going to get that state championship?
Well, he's another one. I hope people understand. I mean, he's a treasure for high school hockey. He's another guy. Every time that I've talked to him, you want to talk about an accommodating, nice guy, and he gets it. So I guess that's my personal endorsement. But the problem with Division III, and it's similar to I think Division II, is listen. You could get bit by Powers. You could get bit by Calumet. I mean, remember Calumet last year? That was a team, again, people forget, they were not winning at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they couldn't lose. You've got a De La Salle there. You've got Houghton, Hancock.
Chelsea.
Yes.
Don Wright, he's another guy that's done so much for the game.
Churchill still has
Livonia
there.
Churchill's still there. That's the issue. And I think, John, to me, part of the problem is, and I'm not going to involve Dave in this. Dave could even leave the room if he wants. But it's the same thing that we've talked about going back to last year. I have a problem when you're talking about pre-regionals and you're talking about Houghton and Hancock and Calumet. And you know who's played well this year? The Flivers.
Yep.
Kingsford's played well this year. So I have a problem where you're going to knock out 2 or 3 teams that quite possibly could win the whole darn thing. I wish there was something to be done about that. That's just me venting. I still think the tournament's great. I'm not saying blow it up, but I just think something can be done about that.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about it in Division II with Stevenson, Trenton, and Plymouth going to be in the same region.
Exactly. Any three of those teams could win the championship.
Yep.
Any three of those teams.
And then in one, you're going to have CC and Northville in the same regional too.
It's unfortunate because, again, and I'm biased because I think we all know Clint. I like Clint. I think Clint is doing a tremendous job at Northville. And Northville hockey in the last few years, what it was and what it is now are two different places. They've got their own fan section, and they got people coming to the games and getting all kind of fired up and everything. And you know what? Clint had a nice run last year. It was great to see them go to the semifinals. But who wants to be in a region or pre-region with CC any year, let alone in a year where Catholic Central, to me right now, there's Catholic Central and there's everybody else. I mean, they're that good right now. Mm-hmm. John, I've known Dave for a long time, and I'm not. These aren't just words. I think he's one of the kindest men I've ever known. I mean that in all sincerity. And his modesty is something that's always made me appreciate him. But Coach, I hate to put you on the spot, but with everything going on in the high school world right now, and all the challenges that you guys face. You have turned Livonia Stevenson, which prior to your time, they had some good teams. Then they'd fall. Then they had some good teams. But you're a year in, year out type of program now. How do you do that?
I think it's surround yourself with good people. We have a really good staff, great administration, and we've been able to build a culture that, players like you mentioned earlier, the Dom Lutz and Tyler Irvines and countless other players that have come through, the expectations are very high. And when you set the expectations high and the kids buy in and it turns into a yearly thing, and we have really solid leadership right now with our senior class. But it's something that, and I think I keep going back to the coaching in terms of like we have good coaching, but as coaches from around the state know, it's a 24/7 type thing, 365. You have the dead week that you get to take off, but the rise of what's been happening in the fall and the spring and the summer with your MDHL and your MHA and giving these high school kids some extra opportunities that our players have been able to take advantage of and some other players from around the state are taking advantage of as well. So it's something that, we have a great group of kids, a great group of families that, come in and don't look at it just to play, like you said, I'm just playing high school hockey. They look at it now as an avenue for whether they want to pursue hockey or they want to pursue something in the academic world or whatever it is that we can help them because, it still is an extension of the classroom. It still is the high school athlete that we're trying to develop the whole athlete. So, I appreciate the kind words, but like I've been saying, there's a number of coaches that from around the state that are doing a heck of a job right now. And high school hockey, it's healthy right now. It's in a really good spot.
Lastly, here on Kids Corner, we're going to be talking about the MIHL Showcase down in Trenton.
Beginning of February. It's February 1st through the 3rd.
Okay. How cool is it for you guys to participate at the showcase?
It's beyond cool. I don't know how else to say that. It's a 3-day event, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They do such a good job of putting the event on. The city of Trenton welcomes in the high school hockey community with open arms. The MIHL, the whole league gets involved in terms of volunteering and things like that. But you have the best from around the state coming in from the north, from the east, the west, the southeast around here. And then you talk about bringing in teams like Culver's coming in, St. Ignatius from Cleveland, who is one of the top teams in Ohio.
The Hill Academy was there a couple times.
They've been there. I don't know if they're coming this year, but I know Notre Dame Academy comes from Wisconsin. And so you have some high-end out-of-state teams that are coming in. And then because they come in, the scouts will show up and the programs – it's a big weekend for us. We've always been very humbled and honored to be a part of it, and so we're excited about it. And
to put you on the spot, is there a particular year or moment that you had at the showcase where it was like, wow?
Well, I think it's everybody's first year.
I remember like in 2014, I think you guys beat Orchard Lake St. Mary's for the very first time. It was at the showcase.
That was one. I still go back to our first year. I remember our first year we drew CC in Trenton, and I think we beat CC by a goal and then tied Trenton. And for us to be put on that that stage with the teams like that, and to get the opportunity to play those teams or participate in events with these teams, it was really cool and really special for us. And our players and our families know how much it means to us in high school hockey.
It starts with an idea. It's exactly what we talked about earlier, and I think Andy and Patrick Ronayne deserves a lot of credit. Patrick's put so much word into that and work into that, and Patrick's been so great in hockey. To me, Johnny, one of the coolest things is going to the MIHL site, mihl.org, and when they come up with the official schedule, like some of the matchups, it's dream come true. If you're a fan of high school hockey, it's like, oh my gosh, Hancock is playing Granville, whatever the case may be. I mean, to me, that's the coolest thing. And all one has to do is look at any particular ranking and go, oh, wow. Okay, so at 10 in the morning, I could see number 3 take on number 5. And then right after that, I could see number 10 take on number 2, vice versa. It's outstanding. And it really is, like its name suggests, a showcase for high school hockey. And they've done such a tremendous job building that and cultivating that and making that, as they like to call it, the premier high school hockey event of the year.
And what's the process to apply for the showcases?
You know what? At the end of every year, they put out a letter, and they any high school team can apply. And so about April, you go through, and it's all on their site, as Sean mentioned, mihl.org, and you go through and you submit an application, and you talk about the players that you've had this year. And they want to know about players that you moved on. They want to know about your schedule. They look at strength of schedule. They look at the teams that are playing better teams, and they want to know what you have coming up. And so you fill out an application, and then shortly thereafter you find out if you've been accepted or not. And, I will say straight up, I mean, I get people laugh at it, but I still always get nervous because I want to make sure I open that email and say that Livonia Stevenson's been accepted, because it means that much to me, that much to our program, that when we get that letter, it's a little bit of a sigh of relief that we're in the showcase and we're happy to be part of it. And then the matchups usually come out mid-January. They'll go through, and the selection committee, I know, does a great job, the competition committee putting the matchups together.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, State Champs has covered it over the years. My favorite moments were in 2014 when Trenton and Heartland played. That was a great game, and then they played each other in the state finals. I remember the one, I know it ended up being a blowout, but it was the first time CC and Novi played.
Right.
And I remember the crowd, it was like a 2 o'clock game, and the place was packed.
Exactly. To get you guys have mentioned, to see Hancock or Traverse City School or Houghton come down and see some of these schools that you hear about, or the Granvilles or the Forest Hills Northeastern, these teams from around the state that are so good that we sit here and talk about, for people to say, well, now I can go catch them and see a team from Hancock play. It's a special weekend.
I think 2 years ago, to answer your question, I think 2 years ago when Hancock came down, and I in my opinion, I don't think people realize what Hancock was yet. And Hancock came down and, in my opinion, served notice and let everybody know, hey, listen, we're going to see you come Division III playoff time. And then obviously it panned out with them. Coach Rollo won the championship and everything. But to me, it's those moments where you see that team that, you've heard guys talk about and you've heard this player whispered about, and then you get an opportunity to see him. Like a couple of years ago, John, we had Levi Wonder as the player of the year out of Escanaba. Well, how many people actually saw Levi Wonder play? Right. That's a word-of-mouth situation. I never saw him play. I had all these coaches tell me, including the guy next to me, hey, listen, this kid's special. But then when you get an opportunity to see them play, you put 2 and 2 together, and to me, those are the moments that make the showcase pretty cool.
Well, that's it for Kids Corner here on the State Champs Podcast Network. Sean, thanks for coming on again.
Anytime.
And thank you very much, David Mitchell. Hope you can join us again.
I'd love to. I can't thank you guys enough, both of you guys in here, with Sean and what he's done, and you, Jonathan, with State Champs and what you guys do for high school hockey. Just overly appreciated. And to the coach, I mean, any coach could be sitting here. I'm just lucky enough to be here and get to chat with you two guys. So thank you very much for all you guys do for high school hockey.
And lastly, how good was he in hockey back in the day?
Sean Baligian in hockey?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. He was. I remember the floor hockey leagues we played in. And, matter of fact,
I was lethal in floor hockey.
I'll do it right on the air. We're getting a team back together on Sunday mornings, and so your name came up. So I may have to talk to both of you guys about getting.
I was a 100-goal scorer, as I recall.
He was. I tell you what, I never got a chance to see him play, but in terms of passion and what he brought, in terms of how big a hockey fan he was and is. Nobody brings a greater passion to this sport than Sean Baligian.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you guys have a good New Year, and we'll talk soon.